And to be quite honest with you, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with Sue Bird.
After the current decline in viewership and lack of interest in the WNBA, Sue Bird has come full circle when discussing Caitlin Clark.
This is what we want. Instead, we're still getting bullshit on viewership numbers.
Since Stephen had supported Caitlin Clark throughout the season and wasn't going to stop now, things got quite tasty between the two. Steppe wasn't going to sit there and watch Caitlin Clark be vilified.
ESPN. So because I work at my day job on ESPN, I'm supposed to ignore the facts?
Sue Bird didn't like Stephen pointing out that there is a decline in viewing and that no one is particularly interested in watching the WNBA finals.
I've seen Stephen A. Smith talk about it. I've seen Shannon Sharpe talk about it. And that's what I just don't understand is they work for ESPN. So why are you hating on a product that ESPN
that they invest in?
Yeah, that's where these viewership numbers are coming. Yeah, it's a business you're in. It's not that they can't. And by the way, it's not that they can't be critical of certain things. They can have their opinions. But that's where I don't understand the framing.
Even though Stephen is employed by ESPN, he nevertheless expresses his genuine thoughts about current events. The WNBA has been having trouble keeping the same numbers without Caitlin, who is a tremendous draw. Sue Bird thinks that although if stadiums are still packed and audiences are still attending, viewers are still watching since ticket prices have drastically decreased.
To see tickets at the Target Center in Minnesota selling for as low as $10.
$25 a playoff game ticket is absurd, but do we really believe that Caitlin would be selling tickets at the same price if she were a WNBA player? Clearly not.
Sharp starts to talk about the attendance and says, like, basically that Caitlin had the highest attendance in the playoffs, which Caitlin Clark played her first 2 rounds in Connecticut, which only holds roughly 10,000, and they got swept, so they never made it back to Cambridge in Indiana to play a home game. So they absolutely did not have the highest attendance.
One of the most revered figures in women's basketball and a WNBA legend, Sue Bird, recently found herself at the center of an unexpected and intense controversy. It started when Bird allegedly blamed Caitlin Clark for the recent decline in WNBA playoff ratings and ticket sales. Many were surprised by Bird's remarks because Clark's influence on the sport has received high accolades for garnering a lot of attention.
There is a Caitlin Clark effect on all of basketball, and especially on women's basketball ratings. Kudos to her. She has elevated an entire sport in viewer.
Bird, a longtime supporter of the WNBA's expansion and resiliency, felt that Smith's comments unfairly painted the league in a negative light and undermined the players' combined efforts and the league's growth over the years. Bird was quick to refute this narrative, determined to preserve the WNBA's reputation and assert that it could thrive. Beyond just one player, Stephen wasn't the only source of Sue Bird's annoyance. She also attacked Shannon Sharpe, who had similarly emphasized the enormous attention Caitlin Clark had brought to women's basketball. Both Smith and Sharpe had been vocal in their praise of Clark, repeatedly recognizing her as a major factor in the increase in viewership and interest in the sport, but Bird felt that this focus on Clark was undermining the WNBA's larger initiatives. Bird, a longtime supporter of women's basketball, was insistent that the league's expansion shouldn't be dependent on a single player since she thought that teamwork rather than individual star power alone might.
With Stephen A. and with Shannon, there's an aspect of them like defending their stances on her. Like, we were right about Caitlin and this is our defense. And I still think there's something twisted there because nobody ever said that Caitlin wasn't going to be a marketing gem, a unicorn.
I still believe there is something twisted there because no one ever stated that Caitlin wasn't going to be a marketing nobody gem or unicorn, but the reality of the situation is difficult to ignore. With Shannon, there is a part of them that is like defending their positions on her, like we were right about Caitlin and this is our defense. Caitlin's unprecedented attention was drawn to Clark's dominating college basketball accomplishments, and many believed that this momentum would carry over to the WNBA playoff sans Clark. One of the ways the WNBA addressed the decline in interest was by lowering ticket prices for playoff games. Fans quickly noticed that without Caitlin Clark's presence, ticket prices dropped significantly, a clear indication that the league was making efforts to fill seats. On the surface, it appeared that the WNBA was successfully selling out games and maintaining strong attendance, but the reality was more complicated. In order to avoid the embarrassment of empty arenas during important games, the league decided to lower ticket prices. Although this gave the impression of high demand, it didn't accurately reflect the level of fan interest. By lowering prices, the league was able to keep stadiums fuller, but it concealed the fundamental problem that without Clark, the enthusiasm and attention simply weren't the same.
You guys take a look at the stands. All the seats, even the courtside seats, are empty.
The arenas would have been far less packed if the WNBA had maintained ticket prices at the same level as during Caitlin Clark's season. The WNBA has had difficulty generating the same level of fan interest without the buzz and excitement that Clark consistently brought to the game, but the league was able to fill seats and maintain the appearance of strong attendance, but this strategy only worked in the short term. When Caitlin Clark first came onto the scene, Sue Bird was among the first to recognize her enormous potential to transform women's basketball. This shift in perspective suggests that Bird is more concerned with safeguarding the league's long-term image, which makes her recent remarks all the more surprising.
We've been to the Liberty Games. They're full. It looks full in Vegas. It looks full every single place that you go. TD Garden sold out when Caitlin wasn't playing there for a regular season.
It's evident that Caitlin Clark's ability to garner enormous attention for women's basketball has made her both a hero and, in some circles, a target. I don't think she was doing anything wrong. In my opinion, all she was doing was going out there and playing fantastic basketball every night and ignoring the hate that was coming to her from all sides, not just from fans. For every fan who applauds Clark's quick rise to fame, there are others who see her success as a challenge to the status quo. This is a common occurrence for athletes who become famous quickly. Another WNBA legend, Cheryl Swoops, has also voiced conflicting opinions regarding Clark's influence.
Nonsense about things that Caitlin was doing wrong when, in my personal opinion, she was doing nothing but going out there and playing great basketball every night and ignoring the hate that was coming to her from all sides, not only from fans.
Although the WNBA has made great progress in recent years in expanding its fan base and visibility, it still faces significant challenges in attracting widespread attention and consistent support. Without players like Caitlin Clark, the league struggles to maintain the same level of interest and excitement in not just hardcore basketball fans but also casual viewers, capturing a broader audience that the league has long sought. Viewers who might not often watch women's basketball were drawn to Caitlin Clark because she was a rare phenomenon and an athlete whose skill and charisma went beyond the sport.
Will Caitlin Clark come into the WNBA and do what she's doing right now? Immediately? Absolutely not.
Made people stay and want to watch the other AR rising tide lifts or boats, which is what Shannon Shah and I were saying when we addressed that issue. Why would you say something like that? I work for ESPN, so I'm supposed to ignore the facts, but that's not what we do. In her absence, the WNBA is struggling to sustain the excitement Clark created and fill the void left by her star power. Her ability to captivate casual fans brought a surge of interest that the league has struggled to replicate. As her star continues to rise, it's getting harder to ignore the growing number of critics for reasons ranging from jealousy to insecurity. For her part, Caitlin Clark has remained focused on her game and consistently performed at an elite level despite the growing noise and attention surrounding her. When an athlete seems to have it all, a meteoric rise, fandom, and unquestionable talent, some people will unavoidably push back against them.
Made people stick around and want to watch the others. A rising tide lifts all boats, which is what we were saying, both Shannon Sharp and myself, when we addressed that issue. Why would you say a quote like that? We work for ESPN, so I'm supposed to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to the facts? That ain't what we do.
Now that Caitlin is out, you're going to witness a decline in WNBA playoff viewing. Is that somewhat true? Yes, the viewership figures for Caitlin Clark are astronomical. She is a huge attraction and draws in everything we know. However, despite her enormously good influence on the sport, Clark has had to cope with her fair share of detractors and haters. The criticism directed at Caitlin Clark doesn't seem to be based on anything she's actually done wrong. On the contrary, her extraordinary popularity has drawn more attention to women's basketball and helped elevate the entire WNBA. Despite this, Clark has managed to stay focused on her performance while navigating the pressure and criticism with grace as she continues to elevate her game and the sport overall. This is especially frustrating. Instead of getting widespread recognition for these achievements, Clark's outstanding performances and captivating personality have not only attracted new followers but also spurred new discussions about the sport's future. From some quarters, Clark has encountered mistrust and occasionally downright animosity. Clark has done nothing but excel and promote the game, giving it the attention the league has long desired, so this response doesn't seem appropriate.
WNBA playoff viewership down now that Caitlin is out. And is that somewhat factually accurate? Yes. It's not accurate. Viewership numbers with Caitlin Clark are astronomical. She is a big draw.
Yeah.
She brings in all the things. We know this. We've said.
Imply that we should just ignore the impact that Caitlin Clark had on this team, this league, this sport. Now, it doesn't work that way. This pattern of tearing down successful female athletes is nothing new, but it's particularly disappointing in the context of women's basketball, a sport that is still striving for mainstream recognition and respect. Caitlin Clark has the potential to be a transformative figure in the game, much like Michael Jordan or LeBron James were for the NBA, with the ability to attract fans and elevate the sport to new heights. However, rather than rallying around her and capitalizing on the momentum she brings, some within the WNBA appear hesitant to fully embrace what Clark represents. This reluctance to support her stardom speaks to deeper insecurities within the sport, where groundbreaking success is sometimes met with resistance. Rather, for Sue Bird, the tension is clear. On one hand, Bird has always been an advocate for the WNBA's success and wants the league to thrive. Whether Caitlin Clark is part of it or not, she understands that for the WNBA to be sustainable long-term, it needs to be seen as strong and vibrant beyond just one star player. However, it's difficult to ignore that much of the league's recent success is closely tied to Clark's ability to attract viewers and generate buzz. Bird's public frustration with commentators like Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe likely stems from a desire to protect the WNBA from being perceived as overly dependent on Clark, regardless of whatever noise has been out there. So when you show that you're able to perform in the face of adversity, to me that is the true testament to greatness. The reality is that without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA is currently struggling to maintain its foothold in the competitive sports world. The league's decision to lower ticket prices during playoff games is a telling sign that they are aware of this issue, even if they aren't openly admitting it. By reducing prices, they've managed to keep arenas fuller, but it's clear this tactic is a temporary fix rather than a long-term solution, while the WNBA continues to push the narrative that it can succeed without relying on Clark. The